Tuesday for our weekly webinar series. I'm Nicole Bako, an IRA specialist here at Quest Trust Company, and today's topic is the power of the Roth IRA with our very own Anne-Marie Rogers as our speaker today. But before we get to the topic and the woman of the hour, I'm going to share a few slides with you about who Quest is and what we do. Just give me 1 second. We are on this screen. And of course, it's not up there. All right, from beginning. There we go. All right. All right, so who is Quest and what do we do? So Quest Trust was actually formed by two brothers, Nathan and Quincy Long. They are investors themselves, so they built the company by investors for investors. They really did build the company around what an investor would need to make the transactions go smoothly, and the customer service and the services that you would need for that. So we're really proud of that. Homegrown here in Texas. We are the largest self-directed IRA custodian here in Texas. 20,000 active investors all across the country. So no matter where you are tuning in right now, we can serve you all across the great 50 states. $2 billion under administration. I want to say it's a little more than that now. $350 million in undirected cash. I know Anne-Marie's going to probably talk about this a little bit later in the presentation, but this is other people's cash undirected in their IRA. So this would be a great opportunity for some lending and borrowing and some promissory notes. With the Roth IRA, these returns with some special specifications, they can actually come out tax and penalty free. So definitely something to pay attention to with Anne-Marie talking in a little bit. So definitely need to go over the disclaimer. This webinar, just like all the other ones that Quest Trust hosts, is for educational purposes only. We do not give any tax, legal, investment, or structuring advice. We advise you to make sure you contact your CPA, your attorney, before getting into any investment deal in your self-directed IRA. So what is a self-directed IRA and why do you need one? So self-directed is honestly just a marketing term, and it means you're in the driver's seat. You get to direct us on what you want in your account. Now here at Quest, we only hold private assets, so nothing publicly traded. So privately held assets. Our clients fund their own investments, do their own due diligence, and then direct us to invest their IRAs in that investment. So some of the benefits of that are diversification. So instead of just being able to invest in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, you're now able to invest in this wide world of private assets. So this includes real estate, promissory notes, private entities, oil and gas, and honestly, the list is really bigger than that. So diversification is huge. Tax savings. So in our traditional IRA, that is a tax deferred account, meaning all of your returns, rental income, etc., you don't pay any taxes on that until you are 59 and a half. So tax deferred, you pay the taxes later. Our Roth account, again, meeting certain specifications, those distributions can come out tax and penalty free. Make sure you contact an IRA specialist, including myself and my team, for information on those accounts and the other ones. Social investing. Not everybody can get a traditional mortgage. So doing like owner financing or other such promissory notes can really help somebody in that situation, and you'll actually be helping somebody possibly even in your local community. Invest in what you know best. So this is really a time for you to shine in what you know best. So if you know a lot about oil and gas or real estate or promissory notes, private entities, multifamily syndications, etc., this is the time where you can actually use that knowledge to help yourself in retirement. So type of self-directed accounts. Here at Quest, these are our 7 accounts, and they're broken down into these 3 categories. We have our personal plans, our employer plans, and our specialty plans. I'd love to tell you more about all of these right now, but unfortunately, we just don't have the time. So make sure you contact an IRA specialist, get one of those free consultations, and we'd love to tell you more about how these accounts can help you or your family. Investment choices. I know I went over these 3 categories just a little bit earlier, This kind of looks like a long list, but honestly, it's kind of short compared to what you really can do in these accounts. Again, get with your IRA specialist, even if you're already one of our clients, and kind of see what's out there. We have plenty of education, which we'll get to in a second, but make sure you're getting with your IRA specialist to make sure that you kind of get a checkup, a tune-up once a year if you're already a client. If you're not, make sure you get with us. We'd love to help you out. So the time has passed for most of the country for those 2020 contribution limits. But if you are in the great state of Texas, Oklahoma, or Louisiana, you have until June 15th to get those 2020 contributions in. So it's not too late for some of the states left. If you have already missed that deadline in the rest of the country, no big deal. You still can get those 2021 contributions in. So we wanted to include this chart to see where your contribution limits are for the type of account you may have with us at Quest. If you don't have an account, make sure you reach out to one of our IRA specialists, and we'd love to help you get started. All right, so kind of here are the steps. This is how it works. The first step, open an account at Quest. Takes 24 to 48 hours to set up. Second, fund your account. You can transfer from an IRA, roll over from an old 401k or other qualified retirement plan like a 403b, or start with a contribution. Third, locate your investment. Like I said earlier, our clients find their own investments, their own deals. They do their own due diligence. 4, complete our internal forms, give us some supporting documents. And 5, as soon as those documents are in good order, we can send the funds out within 24 to 48 hours to get that investment inside of your IRA. Make sure you contact an IRA specialist to help you with this. All right, endless free education, like the seminar you are in now, these weekly webinars at noon on Tuesday and Thursday, free classes. We also, of course, have our Self-Directed Saturday at noon every Saturday. Different webinar, different guest speaker. We love to have you at all of them. Our YouTube channel is actually very robust. Our marketing team really works hard at keeping this updated for you. We have a video section where this webinar is actually streaming live now, and where all of our webinars are recorded for you to go back and see. But it's not just the webinars. We have plenty of education on the types of accounts, funding the accounts, etc. So make sure you check out our YouTube channel. Our education center on our website is also full of information. So make sure you check that out. I forgot to mention our moderator today is Madison Loomis. She is our intern here in the sales department, and she is just doing an amazing job. So thank you, Miss Madison. I know she's going to put these links in the chat box for you so you can access this information. And last but certainly not least is our virtual networking happy hour. This is a really unique event to Quest, and it's really a great event to go to, a current client or not. So this gives you an opportunity to really connect with other investors and kind of see what they're doing. There's always people looking for deals, talking about their deals, looking for money, sending money, etc. So great fun. Come have a glass of wine with us. The next one is actually this coming Wednesday, 6:30 Central. Madison's going to go ahead and put the link in there for you. But come out and join us. So investors all over the country, you kind of get to see what's going on. And everybody will get about a minute on camera to kind of get their time in the sun and say what they're doing. So come join us on Wednesday. I promise to make it a really fun night. All right, so July, mark your calendars. This is the first time we've ever done this. We're doing a summer intensive. Tickets are $25, but it does include all 3 days. And this is going to be a higher level education event. So make sure you mark your calendars, get your tickets now. It will be a really great event. All right, how to get in touch with us. We're actually really easy to get in touch with. The QR code actually does work if you put your camera up to it. Chat with us live. If you go to our website, a little box on the right pops up to chat with a specialist. It actually is real people. They are not robots. If you go on a Wednesday, you actually get to talk to me and some of our other IRA specialists. Give us a call. I love our phone number because we really do try to make IRAs and retirement planning as fun as possible. So 855-FUN-IRAs. Or email us, our main inbox, IRAspecialist@questtrust.com, or you can reach out to me personally, nicole.baco@questtrust.com. All right, guys, that is all I have for you. So now it is time to bring on the woman and the topic of the hour, our very own Anne Marie Rogers. Hi, Anne Marie.
How are you guys doing? Hope everyone's having a good Tuesday.
Yes, we're so excited to hear about the Roth IRA and the power of it.
Let me go ahead and share my screen.
All right, thanks, guys. Make sure to put all of your questions in the Q&A box for us. We'll be happy to answer these at the end of the session.
Okay, hopefully everyone can see these slides. Big thank you to Nicole Bako, who is one of our IRA specialists here with Quest Trust Company. As Nicole said, my name is Anne Marie Rogers. I am one of our certified IRA specialists here, as well as our sales officer. I've actually been with Quest for over 8 years now and really worn a lot of different hats in my time here, from working in the new accounts department to going through my training and getting my designation with the Institute of Certified Bankers to become an IRA specialist. I was our marketing director, and most recently in the last year have stepped into the role of being our sales officer. And as sales officer, it's really my job to manage the 10-person team that is really the face of the company and the first point of contact that anyone interested in opening up an account would have. So our IRA specialists are very, very well-trained and diverse in the type of, IRA investment type of knowledge that you need in order to educate our clients on the many incredible opportunities that exist in self-direction. So really excited to be here today and presenting on kind of a newer topic today. Of course, we've had Roth IRAs for a very long time, and certainly it's one of our favorites to talk about. And we were seeing a need to have a class that really has more of a laser focus and narrowed in on Roth IRAs. We oftentimes get people that will come to us and ask about self-direction with the misconception in mind that Roth IRAs are the only option that exists in self-direction. And that's just not true. If you were watching and you were on with us when Nicole was doing her introduction, you would see that we actually have 7 different accounts, Roth IRAs being one of those 7 that you can self-direct. Just last week, we had a class that was on health savings accounts, or we have accounts that are designed for self-employed individuals, or education accounts. All of these accounts can be self-directed and really have tremendous types of tax benefits, not only for the future, but some of them that can be reaped really immediately as well. So the Roth IRA is one of the accounts that we are focusing in on today. And we call this class the secret weapon to being wealthy. Now, I'm sure most of you are familiar with Roth IRAs, at least somewhat. So you've probably heard that they're a popular type of account, because of the tax benefits that surround them. So as you begin making profits off of all the investments that you're doing, your profits end up going back into the account and they're free of any type of tax. Now, there's some real specific requirements you have to meet to get all of those tax-free distributions, and we'll talk about those today. But really, the possibilities for growing wealth, not only for yourself, but also to pass on to your heirs, is huge with these types of accounts. Now, as I was putting together this class a couple months back now, I was a little bit torn in terms of what I wanted to call it. I was torn between calling it what I ended up going with, which is the secret weapon to becoming wealthy, or if I should call it the secret weapon of the wealthy. And the reason I say that is that, of course, being involved in IRAs and, really having such a love for all the really nerdy technical facts that go around this, it motivated me to start doing a little bit of research about some of the people that may have been very, very successful in their careers and that have then gone on to utilize a Roth IRA and been successful. And, it was in conversation probably this year, obviously we just had the inauguration a couple months back now. And in conversation with someone, we were reflecting back on the 2012 election. I'm sure a lot of you remember, in the media at the time, the huge amount of publicity that Mitt Romney ended up getting. For those of you that maybe don't remember this as much, little refresher is Mitt Romney, became such a focus in the media during the election because it ended up coming out that he had over a $100 million retirement account. And so, of course, the wheels start turning for people and they're like, well, hold on a minute. I thought I could only put like $6,000 in there. How is that possible that you've now grown that to be a $102 million IRA? And so, in this passing conversation that I had with someone, it made me want to relook this up, having a new perspective now working at Quest. And I ended up researching it and, found out that Mitt Romney was, in fact, investing in all types of private companies, alternative investments that we would offer here at Quest. Now, not to say that Quest would sell you the investment, but we offer the vehicle, the self-directed retirement account, where you can go out, locate your own private investments. For him, that was private company investments. For some of you, it may be real estate or notes or oil and gas or, who you name it, right? There's lots of different options. But he was actually choosing alternative style of investments in his retirement account. And of course, became very successful and, was very lucrative for him. Turns out he did not have a Roth IRA. Turns out it was a SEP IRA, which kind of is like a traditional IRA. But basically, in the end, what it means is that as Mitt Romney in the future is taking those distributions in his retirement account, in retirement, he's going to have to pay taxes on those distributions. So with a $102 million account, I can't even imagine what his required minimum distribution is going to look like, right? So obviously, that speaks volumes to how advantageous a Roth IRA would be for him, because that $102 million, again, with the current account that he had, $102 million sounds pretty good to me, right? That's a huge, huge amount of money. However, again, Uncle Sam will be there taking that little bit of a cut. So again, I think this really speaks volumes to why it's so important to take into consideration a Roth IRA. And so this got me motivated to continue on my research and thinking, okay, well, who are other really successful people, very wealthy, affluent members of our society who have utilized a Roth IRA and been successful? And my, expectations were definitely correct in that some of the most wealthy, highest net worth people in the United States are absolutely utilizing these types of accounts. So just to name a few, I won't bore you with all of the facts, but I thought these were kind of interesting. So Peter Thiel, who may not be very familiar with the name, but basically he was both the CEO and the co-founder of PayPal. So very big company, a lot of us are familiar with. Just to give you an idea, his net worth right now is $6.74 billion. So safe to say a very savvy businessman, probably a very successful investor as well. And what actually happened was, obviously his success came from founding PayPal and, managing the company. But Peter was actually one of the earliest investors in Facebook. And there's a lot of kind of rumors around the investments that he made into Facebook. This was years ago. This was like back in, I want to say 2004, I want to say. Anywho, he ended up investing $500,000, and rumor has it that he did this inside of a Roth IRA. I looked around and poked on the internet and I couldn't seem to find that information. But just theoretically, if you follow this through, what the experts tell us is that a $500,000 investment in a Roth IRA today would be valued at $10 billion, which he would be able to take out completely tax and penalty free, provided that he met the two rules that we're going to talk about today. Just to name a couple others, Max Levchin, you may have heard of him. He is the chairman of Yelp, also the co-founder of PayPal with Peter Thiel. His net worth is $1.5 billion. He invested in his Roth IRA in Yelp and ended up making over a $10 million profit in there. By the way, he was only 36 years old at the time that he made all of those profits in his Roth. Susie Orman You may have seen her as a TV personality. She's also a financial advisor. She kind of takes the really comical approach of, can you afford this? And, really kind of a funny show. But she's also an author and a financial advisor. And I'm going to show you an example later on in this presentation where she talks in one of her books about compounding interest and the power of starting specifically a Roth IRA as early as possible and making efforts to contribute as often as you can, hopefully every single year. And lastly, to kind of start us on the path of this, is I started thinking, all right, well, who's the richest person that I can think of? We've talked about some really high net worth people, right? We're talking about billionaires, very high net worth millionaires. And so I started looking up to see, all right, well, what about like Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon? Couldn't find anything, right? I couldn't find if he has a Roth IRA. But when I did look and was reading up online a little bit about him, one of his favorite quotes and really what he lives by, not only in business, not only investing, is that he believes everything's all about the long term. And that is really the secret with Roth IRAs, is that you need a Roth IRA to become wealthy. You can take the, advice from today's class, but it is proven and true, right? We see these very successful people that are utilizing this account. So it's both the secret weapon to becoming wealthy, but also of the wealthy. And I think one of the secrets to success is not going out there and trying to completely reinvent the wheel, right? I think that one of the secrets is being able to mimic what other successful people are doing, what other affluent business people are doing, and utilize the tax strategies or utilize the types of accounts that they are investing with so you too can one day become wealthy. I won't spend too much time on our disclaimer because Nicole did a great job of talking about this. But basically, guys, Quest Trust, the presentation today is just strictly for educational purposes only. We don't provide any tax, legal, investment advice. We don't endorse or sell any types of products or services or investments. Really, this breaks down to just explaining that at Quest, our role is we're a self-directed IRA provider. We are a custodian. It's our responsibility to provide you an account, but then it's up to you guys to be the entrepreneurs and the do-it-yourselfers and go out and find your own investment. And so, of course, along with that comes doing your due diligence. And so we always recommend consulting with qualified professionals like financial advisors, CPAs, attorneys, anyone on your power team before you start entering into any type of investment. Now, before I dive really into what we're going to talk about today, I did want to remind everyone that we have a moderator on with us today. Her name is Madison Loomis. She is our sales intern. Quest, you might not be aware of, but we have a very robust internship program where we hire the most qualified individuals, put them through our internship program. And we're very, very proud of the program that we've put together because we have a lot of full-time people who have started off as interns and really been very successful, very hardworking, and been able to work their way up here at Quest. So I'm very, very excited to have Madison on with me today. As we go through the presentation, if you guys have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to send those in either the chat feature on Zoom or the Q&A feature. Either one, we'll be able to tackle those. Or if you're tuning in from Facebook, you're welcome to just send a comment, put a comment down below, and Madison will take care of those as well. So what will we talk about today? First off, we're going to talk about why Roth IRAs were created, but more importantly, we're going to talk about how they differ from other types of retirement accounts out there. As I said, there's 7 different accounts that we offer at Quest, and Roth IRAs are just one of those that has the tax-free benefits. They are significantly different than what most Americans are used to. Your kind of more traditional options like a traditional IRA or a 401k or a pension. So we're going to talk about why they were created and really what are some of the big benefits of having these types of accounts. And then lastly, we'll show you where you can find more free information and education after the presentation. One of the big things that is so important to us here at Quest, we obviously are investors ourselves. We love talking about all the different things that can be done inside of these accounts. However, we're not allowed to sell you guys investments or give you investment advice. And so one of our favorite things to do is to host these style of events, whether they be about, IRA specific content, or maybe they're about investments, or perhaps even bringing a guest speaker to highlight all the different things that can be done inside of these types of accounts. And as Nicole said, all of these educational networking opportunities are all completely free, even if you are not a Quest client. So absolutely want to have you guys be aware of that so you can take advantage of the many, many opportunities that we have coming up. So, what exactly is a self-directed IRA? I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this, but just in case we have any of you who may be first timers on today, basically, a self-directed IRA is, believe it or not, no different than any other type of IRA out there. Now, you might be thinking, okay, well, how does that work, right? I have an IRA already somewhere and I can't self-direct that into real estate and, buy a flip or buy a rental property or invest in my friend's startup business, right? So how does it work that it's not different? Basically, self-directed is just a marketing term. It's just trying to get across the point that, you're the one that's self-directing, right? You're the one that's in control. You're choosing all your own investments. But there's no magic special type of account called a self-directed IRA. Now, there's different types of IRAs. There's Roth IRAs, there's traditional IRAs, there's SEP IRAs. There's different types. But a SEP IRA at one company to the next, or a Roth IRA at one company to the next, it's exactly the same. How much you can contribute, when retirement age is, what the tax benefits or implications of doing something may be. Those are all standard, no matter what company that you're with. So we can use me, for example. I have a Roth IRA that I invest with at Quest, and I also have a Roth IRA that I invest with at Fidelity. And the accounts are exactly the same. What I can contribute, right? When my retirement age is, how the taxation will work if I decided to take a distribution. All of that is standard at Quest and Fidelity. So what's the difference? The difference isn't in the account. The difference is in what the company, what the custodian is going to allow you to invest into with that account. So for example, with my Roth IRA that I have at Fidelity, I am able to invest in a lot of different options. I can invest in stocks. I can invest in mutual funds, CDs, bonds, annuities, right? All sorts of different things. At Quest, again, with the exact same type of account, I, first of all, have the ability to choose all of my own investments. And second, my investments are really on the other side of the coin, private assets or alternative assets. So I go to my Fidelity account and I invest when I want to do my traditional style investments that a lot of Americans are doing. And I come over to my Quest account when I want to do my alternative investments, when I want to do some private lending, when I want to invest in real estate or private companies or oil and gas, or you name it, right? Because the beauty of self-directed IRAs is that it really allows me the broadest possible spectrum of investments. And I'm really the one that's in the driver's seat. I'm the one that's choosing all of my own deals. And so I'm able to use my expertise as I choose my own investments to benefit me. Nicole shared this one already here. But basically, guys, as I said, we have 7 different accounts that we offer at Quest. Personal plans, employer plans, and special plans. So our personal plans, traditional and Roth, these are very common. For those of you that maybe have worked in corporate America, perhaps you have a 401k, from a previous job or a pension, or you were a teacher, you worked for the government, whatever it is that you may have done where you had a 401k. All of those types of plans roll into something like a traditional IRA or perhaps a Roth IRA, and then you can begin self-directing and choosing your own investments. For those of you that maybe you are first timers here, or maybe you haven't seen a lot of our educational events at Quest, one of my favorite classes that we do, especially for new people, is our Self-Directed IRAs 101 class. It's kind of the foundational entry-level class that I always recommend for people to watch because it gives a very, very in-depth look at all of these different accounts, prohibited investments, things that we want you to be aware of, and does a great job of it step-by-step lining out how it exactly works, right? What exactly, now you gave me all the conceptual stuff, how do I go out there and actually buy real estate with it, right? That is a great class to tell you all of that. Today, we're really here to focus in on the Roth IRA, so I won't spend too much time on that. But again, if that is you, I highly recommend it. You can watch it on our website. Madison will include the link to that now. Or, we also sometimes do it live as well if you'd like to tune in and really get your questions answered in live time as well. Moving on, our employer plans are the SEP, the Simple, and the Solo 401k. These are great plans for those of you that might have that self-employment type of income. Maybe you work for yourself, perhaps you have your own business. These are excellent plans because what they're going to allow you to do is make very, very large contributions to them. Traditional and Roths, the annual contribution is only $6,000 to $7,000. Keep in mind, if you're moving funds from an existing account, there is no cap. So if I have $1 million traditional or Roth IRA, I can transfer over the full $1 million. We're only talking about being capped on making personal deposits into the plan at $6,000 to $7,000. Versus employer plans are great because they're going to let you contribute upwards of $55,000 and up each year. And for those of you that maybe have your own business, you're trying to get perhaps some of your employees involved in this and contribute for them too, there's also some great benefits that come back for the company. So highly recommend. And again, we have a whole class where we laser focus in on the employer plans. And lastly, special plans not to be left in the dust are Coverdell Education Account and Health Savings Account. We call these our special accounts because they have special uses, education, health expenses, but they're also unique in the fact that these can be utilized immediately tax-free. When we talk about the personal plans or the employer plans, these are all really designed as retirement accounts. And so for many of you, retirement may be some years down the road. It could be differing, right? Could be 10 years, 20, 30 more, right? But it's kind of a longer term play, right? Our special plans are unique in that, yes, they have very specific uses, but also they're special in that they can be used today. So a Coverdell Education Savings Account can be used today tax-free to pay for your children's education expenses. Quincy, the founder and the CEO of Quest, he has had one for one of his daughters, and he was able to pay for her college education almost completely tax-free, and she went to a very nice private school. So this could be a great option for those of you that still have school-age kids and you want to kind of have a little bit more control and choose investments for their education account. And of course, health savings account, again, immediately can withdraw funds tax-free to pay for all types of health expenses. Myself and my husband, we've both had one for, probably 7-8 years. Works really well for us. Whenever we have some type of a medical expense come up, got to go to the dentist, got to get new contacts or glasses or medications, all of that comes out of the account completely tax-free. So just by doing a couple of deals a year in our HSA or perhaps in your child's education account or your employer plan, or even considering partnering these together, you can really begin allocating profits back in different percentages and create wealth in different buckets or different categories for all your different needs. And of course, as I said, all of these can be self-directed. You can use just one account. Maybe you want to dip your toe in and just use your retirement account to fund your first deal, but also consider the fact that you could partner together as well. So what you're seeing here, this individual vesting, is how the investments will actually be titled when you move forward. So just keeping a really simple example, if I said, okay, I want to use my IRA and I'm going to buy a fixer-upper. I'm going to buy a real ugly eyesore rundown property in my neighborhood. I'm going to fix it up, right? I'm going to hire the contractors, get them to make it all beautiful, and then I'll hopefully sell it for a profit. So it's important to remember that your IRA is its own entity. Yes, it's your retirement account. It's your money, your nest egg. But when we're actually investing the account itself, it's going to be that the investment is owned by the IRA. And so the vesting will reflect the name of the IRA, which is what you're seeing here, this individual vesting. So it'll show Quest Trust Company, FBO, which stands for the benefit of, your first and last name, and then your IRA account number. And as you have profits back, they will flow back into the IRA, and any expenses that you have, right? I said I wanted to fix up this eyesore property, so maybe I need to pay my contractors or pay, HOA or insurance or whatever it may be. That also will come from the IRA. The second option that you see on here, which is the partnered vesting, this would come into play if you decided you wanted to use multiple accounts. So I personally have done an investment where it was my IRA and 7 other IRAs, and we all pooled our money together and we did a sizable investment that we wouldn't have been able to do individually for any of us. So this is an excellent way to not only get other accounts that you have, or perhaps that your spouse has, get those involved, but also other business partners, or maybe smaller accounts that you're just getting started, like a health savings account or an education savings account. So I know a popular strategy that I've seen other clients use is perhaps they use husband and wife, both accounts partnered together, and then they establish an education account or a health savings account or a small Roth IRA, and they partner them all together. So again, you have that wealth or that money from the profits of your deal going back in the different percentages. There's lots of different investments that you can do inside of these types of accounts. This is honestly just the tip of the iceberg. Real estate, notes, private companies, but there's so many other ones that you can do. So let's talk now about what we're here to discuss today, the Roth IRA. So Roth IRAs are a tax-advantaged retirement account. Basically, there is, basically the way the Roth IRA works is very different in a lot of ways than how kind of the more traditional style of investing and saving was set up. So years ago, when the traditional IRA was set up, the idea was that you were going to be deferring taxation into the future when hopefully you're in a lower tax bracket, and hopefully then you'll pay less when you take the money out at that time. And as you make contributions, you get a deduction. I would kind of say that Roth IRAs work like an opposite setup to that. When you make personal deposits into the account, you don't receive a tax deduction. Your contributions are after tax. However, your investment profits, unlike a traditional IRA or unlike a 401k, where they're growing deferred, meaning just pushed off into the future, essentially, as long as you meet the requirements, your investment profits could come out completely tax-free from a Roth IRA. So a very, very powerful type of account, especially for the savvy investor who's going to do a lot of deals, or you really think that you're going to have some profitable deals coming up. This can be a great tool to have those tax-free, profits for the future. In addition, a lot of times we'll see younger people, younger investors, or people that are perhaps setting up a first-time retirement account, set up a Roth IRA. And we'll talk about why as we continue on. Roths have been around for a long time, since 1997, but I would say really even just in the last decade especially, they've very, very much become a more commonplace, more well-known type of account. Even now you're on Facebook or on social media or on YouTube, and you really oftentimes see a lot more about this specific type of account because it has such incredible benefits that, again, we're going to talk about. It was created, as with any type of retirement account, to incentivize Americans to save for the future, but also to really create more diversity in retirement accounts. The traditional IRA and the tax deferred method and getting tax deductions was really kind of the main focal point for how Americans have been saving since the creation of it, since 1974. And so in the 90s, the mindset was kind of changing and money was shifting, and so there was a need for having a different method for some people to be able to prepare for the future. So I already kind of mentioned this a little bit, but this kind of gives you a nice visual of how the Roth IRA is different than a lot of other accounts out there. especially talking about like a traditional IRA, for example. So with a lot of the accounts that exist, like traditional IRAs, the tax benefit is going to be today. So the idea is that as you make deposits into the account, you're going to be receiving a tax deduction. So essentially, it's reducing your personal tax liability and also incentivizing you, hey, save for the future. You're going to, age, you're going to need to retire, hopefully in the future. And it's incentivizing you to save for that and in return giving you that tax deduction. And as you begin doing your investments and, whether that's stocks or whether that's real estate, and you begin making your profits go back into the traditional IRA, and the profits are not taxable. However, the account is growing what's called tax deferred. What this means is it's deferred, right? It's pushed off into the future. So it doesn't disappear. The idea is that your taxes are deferred into the future when you start taking your money out in retirement. So as I begin withdrawing my money at, let's say, age 72, the idea is that perhaps I'm retired, right? Perhaps I'm in a lower tax bracket at that time, and theoretically that I'm going to pay less taxes at 72, for example, than what I would pay, in my 40s or in my 30s or 50s or whenever. Alternatively, Roth IRAs really give you a huge tax benefit tomorrow. So with Roth IRAs, as I mentioned, you don't get a benefit today. You don't get the benefit of a deduction as you make your contributions. However, your contributions, since they are going in after tax, this is one of the great things is that it does give you more flexibility. So any deposits that I personally make into my Roth IRA, kind of think about it like a savings account, in that if I need the money or I want the money and I want to take it out, it comes out free of any tax and any penalties. So I'll say it again. Any money that I personally deposit into a Roth IRA, I can take out anytime for any reason, tax and penalty free. If I tried to go do that for my traditional IRA, doesn't work that way. If I took the distribution, I'm going to have to pay taxes and penalties because I'm not at retirement age. So any money that I put into a Roth IRA, while no, I don't get the perk of the deduction, I do get the flexibility of being able to take them out if I need them. So for whatever reason, if I put in $5,000 today and I have an emergency next week and I want to take out that $5,000, that's mine, tax and penalty free. Or if over the course of the last, 2 years, I've been really saving up in my Roth IRA, and I look at my husband and I'm like, all right, I think we're coming to a close here with COVID. Let's go on a nice vacation, right? I could take out 10, 20, whatever, all of my contributions, tax and penalty free. So I think that's one of the big reasons why Roth IRAs can be a popular account, especially for those that are first-time retirement account holders or even younger people, because it gives you the benefit that you can make the contributions and you can invest them. But if you need them, you do have the ability to access them and have that flexibility. Now, the main tax benefit for Roths is, again, not today. It's not coming off of the deductions that you're getting. It's coming tomorrow. All of your Roth IRA distributions have the ability to come out tax and penalty free in terms of your earnings, right? So going back to that real estate example, I buy the ugly house, I fix it up, I flip it, I make my profit goes back in my Roth IRA. And as long as I meet the requirements, and we'll talk about those as we continue on, I'm able to take out all of my investment earnings completely tax and penalty free. So yes, Roth IRAs are a popular vehicle for perhaps younger people or maybe newer account holders, but it's also a very popular type of account and a necessary tool to have in your tool belt for those of you that are doing long-term style of investing and you think it's going to be very profitable. This is a great option for you to create tax-free wealth, not only for your retirement, but also tax-free wealth that can be passed on to your children or your spouse after you would pass away. So what are the top 10 Roth IRA benefits? Honestly, 10 is probably just the tip of the iceberg there. Roth IRAs have So many benefits, but these are some of the favorite ones that I think that a lot of you will be interested in hearing. Believe it or not, anyone can have a Roth IRA. If you were told otherwise, then you've been misinformed. And you might have already caught on to that if you were watching at the beginning and, we're talking about people with a $6.7 billion net worth. How do they have Roth IRAs? You'll find out today. Contributions can be withdrawn, as we learned already, at any time. And contributions are still allowed at any age. There's no required distributions. So with a lot of retirement accounts, you're going to be forced to take distributions from these types of accounts. That's never the case with Roth IRAs. And tax-free distributions in retirement. You can create some income diversification in your retirement by having a Roth IRA. If you take into account all of the different types of income that perhaps you will have coming in retirement, as you kind of peel it back, a lot of times people don't even realize, but oh man, all of my income that's going to be coming in, it might be taxable. So having a Roth IRA could be a way to create further diversification for yourself in retirement and have some tax-free money coming to you. You're locking in now to some degree. Taxes are unpredictable. We don't really know what the future holds. It could go up. It could go down, right? Probably is going to go up, just considering. But you won't really have to worry about that with a Roth IRA. You don't have to choose between your work retirement account and a Roth IRA. So we're going to talk about the benefits of having both, having your foot in both sides. Penalty-free distributions in some circumstances that are not related to retirement at all. And lastly, as I tipped off, is that you can leave your family a tax-free inheritance for the future. We have a question that's what is an in-plan 401k to Roth conversion? This is a great question, and we'll actually tackle this one as we continue going on. So hold tight on that. So first benefit is anyone can have a Roth IRA. We really frequently hear this objection is, no, I, met with my CPA many times or met with different types of professionals. And, I was told that I make too much money, which is a great problem to have, right? But I'm not allowed to have a Roth IRA. And this is just plain incorrect, honestly. Like I said, we have all of these very successful people that have utilized Roth IRAs that are well over the income cap. And so, the question that we got from this attendee also comes at a great time because essentially there is a loophole which allows anybody in the world, even the Jeff Bezos of the world, to be able to have this type of plan. Now, what you're seeing here in this chart here basically is what your income would need to be within, and there's different ranges dependent on how you're filing, like married filing joint or separate or single. And what you can see here is that when you're in excess of married filing joint, about 200,000, well, you can contribute $0. So, you might be scratching your head like, all right, well, Anne Marie, I thought you said that, anyone in the world can have a Roth IRA. So if you are exceeding the dollar amounts that you're seeing here, you're not going to be able to make a direct contribution to a Roth IRA. However, the caveat that I have for you on that is that you're able to do what's called a Roth conversion and essentially bypass this type of rule. So this kind of comes in two different forms. So if you are already an existing retirement account holder, perhaps you have a 401k or you have a traditional IRA, and you already have too high of an income, again, higher than what you're seeing here, then no, you're not going to be able to make a direct contribution into a Roth IRA. However, 10 plus years ago now, there was a loophole that was created. What happens is you're able to now do a conversion from a pre-tax account, so like a traditional IRA, a 401k, into a Roth IRA. What changed about a decade ago is that they lifted the income cap, not for making direct contributions, but rather for converting the funds. So now anyone in the world can do a conversion. So if you've already got a retirement account that's pre-tax, like a traditional IRA or like a 401k, you're now able to do a Roth conversion and move funds over into that type of plan. Let's talk about that a little bit and talk about, what are some of the pros and cons and tax implications and all of that. But before we get there, what if you were also someone that said, okay, yeah, maybe I have a traditional IRA or a 401k and I could do a conversion, but I really want to continue putting money in. Or maybe you're just, a fluke person that, I don't know, maybe you don't have a retirement account already set up and you say, all right, I want to set one up, but I am over that income. Take into account that you can actually make a contribution into something like a traditional IRA or a SEP IRA, make a contribution into it, and then again, immediately convert those funds. There's no income limitations for contributing to those pre-tax accounts like traditional IRAs, for example. You might not be able to get the deduction depending on your income and if you have a plan at work, but you can always put the money in after tax and do a conversion. So this is a really good option for those of you that are looking into having a Roth IRA and you've got the great problem of having a pretty high income. So let's dive in and talk a little bit more about Roth conversions. So what are some of the things to consider? When I'm moving money from a pre-tax account, like one of these, a traditional IRA, a pension, one of those accounts, when I move the funds over into a Roth IRA, generally speaking, I'm going to have to pay taxes. Why? Because anything that enters the Roth IRA is going to be after tax, whether that be you personally depositing funds or whether that be coming from a pre-tax account that has yet to be taxed. So just for some easy math examples, let's say I had a $100,000 traditional IRA and I came to the Roth IRA class and, I've been learning about self-direction and I think this might make sense for me, right? I might want to just bite the bullet and pay the taxes and now do all my future investments in a Roth. So let's say I took that 100,000 traditional IRA and I converted the full thing to a Roth IRA. Man, that's going to be a pretty big tax bill because essentially what's going to occur is $100,000 is going to add to my adjusted gross income. The amount that I convert was $100,000. So $100,000 is going to add to my income. And, certainly that could bump you up a tax bracket and affect your taxes. So it's important to take into account, how much do I really want to convert over? You absolutely don't have to convert the full account though. And I would say, the average client that we deal with does not convert the full balance of the account. They might say, all right, I'm going to do 20,000 this year, pay taxes on that, maybe do another 20,000, 50,000, depends. How much do you have? How much are you looking to convert? What is your income? These are all things to consider and to review with your CPA. But keep in mind that you can do multiple conversions. So perhaps you want to, of that $100,000 example IRA, perhaps you just convert over 25,000 or 50,000. Again, whatever makes sense for you. So generally speaking, you will pay the taxes personally. You can pay them from the IRA, though generally that's not something that we often see our clients do. And if you're not yet at retirement age, which again is 59 and a half, then generally speaking, on top of the taxes that you're going to pay, it's kind of seen like a normal distribution. To, put that in layman's terms, pretty much you're going to have a 10% penalty on top if you choose to take the money for the taxes from the IRA. Plus, unless you have a huge account, $500,000, $1 million, whatever, you're also taking money away from an account that you're capped at the maximums that you can put in there. So just depending on your personal situation, it may depend, right? If you're over 59 and a half and you're considering doing a conversion, then it could make sense for you to pay them from the IRA. But again, something to consider with your CPA. So hopefully that answers your question. If you're trying to do a conversion from a traditional IRA, and my tax bracket is 28%. Again, if your income level is at 28%, then adding on, whatever amount of the conversion could certainly fluctuate and push you up higher in terms of your tax bracket. So definitely something to consider for sure. Is it the right timing? Will my tax bracket be increasing or decreasing soon? There's a lot of different things to be said on what is the right timing to do a conversion. There's some perks to doing it around now, a little bit earlier in the year, in that you have the longest amount of time to do the conversion, go out there, take the Roth IRA, find a deal, make money off of it, to make it worth it. That by the time that you pay the taxes, April of 2022, that was worth it for you. You've got the longest amount of time to be able to do deals, make money, and, save up to be able to pay the taxes perhaps. But there's also something to be said for doing a conversion at the end of the year. The deadline to do a conversion is always December 31st. Why would it be advantageous to me to do a conversion on December 31st or in November? Well, if I did a conversion in November, do I have a pretty good idea of what my income will be come November? Yeah, right? There's only 1 month left of the year. So I have a pretty good idea of what I made in the year and what my anticipated tax bracket, or me and my spouse, will be. And so it might be easier for me to say, okay, it's X, and I could convert whatever, $10,000 and stay within my tax bracket, or just bump me up this much. So I think, kind of depending on your personal situation, the time of the year, there's definitely something to be said for taking into account what month you're doing it in. Also, is it worth it? You are going to have to pay the taxes when you do that conversion, but all future profits in the Roth IRA will be completely tax-free. But how long do you have to grow the money tax-free? If you don't have very long to grow the account tax-free, will it be beneficial for you to pay tax and do the conversion if you don't have a very long time to grow the account? And maybe you're coming out of your savings to pay for the conversion, right? However, that being said, I sometimes do see our clients that, they are a little bit more seasoned in life. They're, little on the older side, and that they decide, hey, I think I actually do want to do a conversion. And the reason that they move forward with it isn't because they anticipate themselves benefiting from the Roth, but because they want to leave a tax-free inheritance to their children, their spouse, grandchildren, whoever. So yes, that is something to take into consideration, but also, how do you want to leave your heirs their nest egg too? And what type of deals will you be doing? Lastly is, are you going to need the money in the next 5 years? So going back to the initial example that we used, again, just the easy math, I have $100,000. I convert it over into my Roth IRA. I can immediately invest it and grow it and make tax-free profits. Awesome, right? That's what we all want. But an important question to ask yourself before you do it, and again, to consider with your CPA, is, will I need the money in the next 5 years? So with conversions, generally speaking, you have to leave the converted amount inside the Roth IRA. This is, again, not saying you can't invest it. This is just saying it can't be distributed, to you personally in 5 years. If you need the money and you want to take it out, you can certainly access it, but you're going to have a 10% penalty. So in an effort to avoid that, hopefully the converted amount that you move over into the Roth IRA, you won't need that for 5 years to avoid that 10% penalty. We actually have an entire class that is a really good one. It's taught by one of the founders of Quest Trust Company, all about Roth conversions. It talks a lot more in detail about all of these different items that I discussed. It also shows you real investment case studies of how they could work. So I highly recommend you check that one out. Our website is questtrust.com, and you'll be able to see that there. Okay, moving on to benefit 2 and 3. So contributions can be withdrawn at any time, and contributions are still allowed at any age. These are really nice perks. I went very in detail about how you can withdraw your contributions at any point, tax and penalty free. The max that you're able to deposit each year is around $6,000 to $7,000, just depending on your age. And you always have until the tax filing deadline. So if you're looking to make a 2021 contribution, you have until April 15th of 2022. So you got plenty of time, but always, of course, recommend that you guys get your contributions in, or even consider setting up something like a direct deposit. So if you have a 401k at your job, it probably automatically withdraws and goes into your 401k. You can set up the same thing with a Roth IRA as well. Now, I see a great question that I think Rebecca was asking on there. What about spouses that might be working, not working at this time? Perhaps one spouse is working and one spouse is currently not working outside of the home, right? Perhaps they're not bringing in their own income right now. Are they able to make a contribution to the account? Yes, absolutely. As long as you are married and filing jointly, you would be able to make a contribution based on your spouse's income. So definitely something to consider there. And of course, contributions are still allowed at any age. The one caveat to that is that you have to make sure that you do still have some type of earned income. So you are required to have some type of income that you're bringing in order to be able to make that contribution. All right, continuing on, benefit 4 and 5. So one of the great benefits of Roth IRAs is that there are no required minimum distributions. A lot of the accounts, like traditional IRAs, for example, are going to force you to begin taking money out of the account. That's what a required distribution is that at the age of now 72, used to be 70 and a half, but now it's a little bit older, due to just people working longer and living longer. So the age was increased to 72, but at that age, you're going to be forced to start taking that money out of the account and paying taxes on it. One of the huge perks about Roth IRAs is nobody's ever going to be coming to you and forcing you to take distributions. You can take distributions when you're ready in your retirement. So a great benefit there is you're never going to be forced to take money out and start paying taxes on there. And of course, one of the huge benefits to this account is when you start taking your money out, it's coming out tax-free. Doesn't really get any better than that. But of course, the IRS, they have to make the rules a little bit more complex. And so there's a very, very specific way that money comes out of Roth IRAs when you think, all right, I want to take a distribution out. So first off are contributions, followed by the conversions that we just talked about. And last but not least is your earnings or your investment profits. Contributions, these are going to, again, come out tax and penalty free. Those are yours, not just 1 year's, but any of your contributions that you put in. Those are always yours, tax and penalty free. And this is really the first category of money that is depleted from the account. So you're able to take if you go to the account and you're wanting to take a distribution, when that money is coming out, the first category that you're going to completely deplete are your contributions. Now, as you've taken all of those out and now your time to start taking out the next category of money, that's going to be coming from your conversions. And again, conversions are just meaning that this was money coming from a pre-tax account like a 401k or traditional or SEP, and then that's been moved and converted into a Roth IRA. Conversions, you're taxed when you did the conversion, but in order to avoid the 10% penalty that I mentioned, you have to leave the conversion in there for at least 5 years. And each conversion that you do has its own 5-year clock. So if you fell into the category of person that said, all right, I want to do a conversion every year for the next 5 years because I want to separate out, the amount of tax burden I'll have for each year, then you do have to do a little bit of bookkeeping. And we do a great job here at Class with our very advanced client portal and all the systems that we have in place that making it really easy to be able to track that and know, okay, I converted this amount in 2020, 21, so on and so forth. But that's the next category of money that comes out. Last but not least is your investment earnings. So you guys are savvy investors and all the money that you made back from all your investments, time to take that money out. In order to get that money tax and penalty free, you have to meet two requirements, and you have to meet both, okay? The first one is always that you've had the account open for 5 tax years. You have to have had the Roth IRA open for 5 tax years and meet one of these 3 requirements that you see: 59 and a half, or being a first-time home buyer, or death, not preferable, or disability. For 99% of you, it's going to be account open for 5 tax years and 59 and a half. So once I'd satisfied both of those requirements, that I'd had the account for 5 years and I was at retirement age, which is 59 and a half, I'd be able to immediately go to my Roth IRA and take out all those millions of dollars that I've hopefully accumulated in there for my retirement. So for those of you that are perhaps close to 59 and a half, or perhaps even at 59 and a half or older, you do absolutely have to meet both requirements. So if you're even considering, or you're thinking, yeah, maybe I want to do a little bit of research and figure out if this makes sense, I absolutely encourage you guys, take advantage, set up the Roth IRA and make a minimal contribution. I don't care, $10, $100, whatever you're comfortable with, to get that 5-year clock started, so that you don't decide several years down the road, oh man, I really want to do this Roth IRA, and then have to wait 5 years from that point. Go ahead, get that clock started. So by the time you hit 59 and a half, you'll be able to immediately go to your Roth IRA, take out a tax-free distribution. We talked about this just slightly, but it's something to consider. Having a Roth IRA could really create income diversification in retirement. And to some degree, you're locking in now. We always get the question of, will Roth IRAs be grandfathered in if taxes change, or what's going to happen? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. I would think so. I would think that they would be grandfathered in, right? And you'd be able to continue on with those types of rules, just considering other legislation that surrounded retirement accounts and kind of the protocol that's been followed as those things have come into play. But you're locking in now. We don't know what the taxes will do in the future, whether they will go down or whether they'll go up. But with a Roth IRA, you're really not going to have to take into account that, because you're not going to pay taxes as long as you've had the account for 5 years and you're over 59 and a half. Who cares? It's going to come out completely tax-free, right? And of course, the income diversification piece is just that, take into consideration what income you may have planned for yourself or your spouse to come in your retirement years. I think a lot of times, people think, all right, well, I've got some money coming in from, savings, and I've got some, maybe a little bit of earnings that's coming in, and, spouse has an old pension, and I've got Social Security and this, that, and the other, right? And, you've got the wheels turning, and I know I've got money coming in from all these different areas. But one thing to consider is that money coming in taxable still to you? Because the amount that you might have in your mind that's in there that's coming to you may not be the end amount that you actually receive. Because with something like a 401k, for example, if I have $1 million 401k, but then I have to pay taxes each time I take a distribution out, is it really $1 million? Well, no, it's not, because a portion of that is going towards taxation. So it is less. So I think a great way to further diversify your income for the future, for in your retirement, is to have a Roth IRA. Because again, Roth IRA distributions are going to come to you completely tax-free. So even if you've still got earnings, or even if you've still got some other, investment income or whatever coming in that's taxable, you're also further diversifying by having that Roth IRA with that tax-free money coming to you in retirement. Believe it or not, you can have your cake and eat it too. A lot of times people think that you have to choose, you got to cherry pick. Oh, I can have a Roth or I can have a 401k. That's just not true, guys. You can absolutely have both. I have a 401k here at my job, and I also have several Roth IRAs that I invest with. You can contribute to both your 401k up to the maximum contribution and Roth IRAs as well. So if you have the option to have a 401k at your job and your employer is, going to put some money in there, take advantage of that, right? How often can you get free money from your employer? Take advantage of that. Use that to your benefit. But in addition to that, also take into consideration using something like a self-directed Roth IRA. I know a lot of times with 401ks that people have at their jobs, there might not be a whole lot of options that you have or a lot of flexibility. And certainly you're probably going to be limited to only publicly traded investments like stocks and mutual funds and things of that sort. So by having a Roth IRA that's self-directed somewhere like Quest, you're also going to have the ability to, one, have this tax-free type of category, but also one that you're in control of and you're able to diversify and invest in kind of the more alternative space. And you even have the option to make your 401k into a Roth 401k as well. So when your employer makes contributions in, those are always going in essentially like traditional money. But you might not be aware that you as the employee can make contributions either traditional or Roth. What this means is that in the future, one day when you're going to leave your job, you want to take that 401k and move that over somewhere into an IRA. What that means is that all of your employer portion automatically is going to go to a traditional IRA. But if you as the employee made Roth contributions rather than just the kind of standard traditional, what this means is that all of that money that you had put in there, you'd be able to move over into a Roth IRA and immediately begin self-directing that. So you can have both a 401k and a Roth IRA. And then even within the 401k, you can have kind of those two subcategories within that plan itself. This is definitely something I would have you guys consider. And of course, you can always have a consultation with one of our certified IRA specialists to kind of explore this from an educational standpoint and talk about the different options that you guys have. Benefit 9 is that you have the ability to take penalty-free distributions in some circumstances that are not at all related to retirement. So one of the really nice provisions that the government's put in place with Roth IRAs is that you're able to take really for very, very specific type of cases, distributions where you do not pay the 10% penalty that you normally would for not being at retirement age. Some of those situations are medical expenses exceeding 10% of your AGI. If you really have a very serious medical event and the medical expenses become very costly and burdensome, and perhaps you cannot, oftentimes, it's very difficult to pay something like that. Once you get to that stage, you're actually able to start taking distributions out of your IRA without that penalty. So hopefully that isn't you, but it's nice to know that that provision exists in the worst case scenario. Health insurance premiums while you become unemployed. Health insurance is a fortune, right? We teach a whole class on health savings accounts and some of the great benefits of preparing for the future, specifically in line with preparing for healthcare needs for yourself and for your family. Health insurance can be very, very expensive, especially can be burdensome while you become unemployed. So you're able to actually take distributions towards those premiums while you're unemployed, again, without the 10% penalty. Higher education expenses. So for those of you that may be, looking to pay for higher ed, college, postgraduate degrees, not only for yourself, but also for your spouse or perhaps your children, you can take penalty-free distributions for this. If you're considered a first-time home buyer, which means you haven't owned a home in the last 2 years, you're able to take a penalty-free distribution of up to $10,000. So what a great thing that you could do for your children. You could set up a Roth IRA for, maybe your high school age child who perhaps has a summer job and has some earned income. Put that money into a Roth IRA for them, have it growing for them, investing it. Maybe you partner it alongside your own account, have some money going back. And in the future, when your child wants to purchase their first home one day and take that big step, they'd be able to take out a $10,000 distribution penalty-free. And if it had been over 5 years, it would also come out tax-free too. So a really nice benefit there, and something to consider for those of you that maybe have kids that, not only are you trying to build a little nest egg for them, but maybe you also want to kind of expose them to some of the investing principles or saving principles that are so important for people as they prepare for the future and prepare for retirement. Qualified reservist distributions if called to active duty, and many, many other ones that exist, but these are just some of the interesting ones that are out there. The last benefit is the ability to leave your family a tax-free inheritance. As I said, one of the things to consider is when you're doing a conversion is, do I have enough time to be able to grow my account? But even if you don't, something that you should take into consideration is what type of tax burden do I want to leave behind for my family? Certainly, inheriting any type of account is beneficial. It's money that you didn't have before, right? But depending on the type of account that you leave to your family members, they may still have to pay taxes on the distributions in the future. If you left your family member a Roth IRA, they're able to continue taking tax-free distributions out of this plan. If you leave your Roth IRA to your spouse, they're the only a spouse has the option that they can actually transfer the funds into their own IRA. But for pretty much everybody else, it becomes an inherited IRA. And inherited IRAs allow you to take distributions out as the beneficiary to that account, again, completely tax and penalty free. So this can be very, very beneficial if you leave it to perhaps your children, your grandchildren, other individuals, even a charity, and they're able to take those tax-free distributions. And of course, if maybe taking them over the course of a certain period of time kind of that didn't float their boat, maybe they just wanted to take it all at once, they can certainly do that too. Lump sum distribution, again, tax and penalty free. All right, so at the beginning, I talked a lot about the different types of people that have been very successful business people who have utilized a Roth IRA and been really successful with it. One of those people that I mentioned was Susie Orman. Maybe if you're not familiar with her, maybe seeing this picture kind of would tip you off a little bit. But little background, she has, I'm not sure if she's actually still on the air, but she had a really kind of crazy, comical show. She was a financial advisor, and people would call into her show on TV, and they would tell her, how much they make or how much they'd have in savings, how much they have in debt. And they would ask her all these crazy off the wall things like, Susie, can I afford to go on a $20,000 trip to Europe? Or, can I afford to buy diamond earrings or whatever it was that they were looking to buy, right? And she would go through all their personal situation, and she would be like, heck no, you can't afford that. Or yeah, go for it, right? You're doing really well for yourself. But she's also, in addition to being, this kind of crazy TV personality, she's also an author of a lot of very good financial books, really kind of an easy read. And, of course, shout out to her, being a woman in kind of a male dominated field. So I read one of her books, and one of the things that I wanted to share with you guys today is a compounding interest example, specifically in Roth IRAs that she has in one of her books. So in the example she gives, you start making contributions into the Roth IRA of just $100. And she shows a breakdown of if you started contributing just $100 into the account at the age of 25 versus if you waited 10 years and started at 35 and with the retirement age of 65 years old, what would that look like? And it was pretty crazy when you break down what a huge, huge difference the numbers look at. So over here, annual return 6, 8, 10%, right? That's a, nice return. Look at the huge difference if you start at the age of 25 versus 35. Almost more than double what you would have by just starting 10 years older. And that, guys, is only with $100 a month. As we saw several slides back, what can you contribute to a Roth IRA annually? $6,000 to $7,000. So just by doing $1,200 in a year and getting a 10% interest, she would have $584,000 by the time she got to retirement. So imagine the impact if you actually made a higher contribution than just $100 a month or $1,200 on an annual basis. What if you did up to the maximum? Let's say maybe you're 25 or 35 and maybe, I can't afford to make the full $6,000 to $7,000. Let's just bump it up marginally and say you started contributing just $450, which for a lot of people, if you've got like a car loan, a car note or something like that, you very well might be making a $450 payment on that, right? So imagine if you took that instead and you deposited into a Roth IRA and invested it, keeping again the same intention, retiring at the age of 65, starting at 25 versus 35. Take a look at this. If you had started at the age of 25 and contributed $450 a month, which by the way comes out to less than the $6,000 to $7,000 max, comes out to just $5,400. By the time that you got to retirement, you would have $2.6 million saved up. Now, that might sound like a lot of money to you. And I mean, wow, 2.6 million is a huge amount of money to be able to have, especially when you're talking about taking it out tax-free. But imagine if you'd even gone up to the $6,000 to $7,000. That would be a very, very sizable amount. It's important to take into account, and in some of our other classes, we talk a lot more about this, but what's that magic number that you need to be able to comfortably retire? A lot of the studies that have been done have led us to kind of have an average that, kind of the average American needs about 70% of their pre-retirement income in order to be able to comfortably retire in the future. So just easy math here. If I make $100,000 in the year, 70% of my pre-retirement income, $100,000, is $70,000. Well, $70,000 times 30 years, let's say I want to have from age 65 to 95 just to be on the safe side, guys, that comes out to $2.1 million. And that's with me living on 70% of my pre-retirement income for myself and my spouse, which might not be what I want or everything I need to get me there. So I like to always show this one in this class because one, compounding interest, it's a no-brainer. We've all heard about this. But it also shows you the benefit of starting at a very early age and really taking into consideration saving for retirement in your 20s can make a huge, huge difference. Now, for those of you that are thinking, oh, well, man, I wish I knew about this, or I wish this was an option for me back in my 20s, I'm well beyond that. It's never too late to start, right? Make a contribution into the account, do a conversion, explore the option of doing that because Roth IRAs really have such a huge benefit for so many different people. Really quick, let me show you a quick case study that we have on Roth conversions. This was a real client that did a conversion and it ended up being very, very beneficial for them. So, I used the example earlier, you find the eyesore property in the neighborhood, you want to go and fix it up. Well, I mean, safe to say this is definitely a eyesore in the neighborhood and needed to be rehabbed. So our client ended up doing a conversion from their traditional IRA to their Roth IRA of $150,000. And again, yes, they were going to have to pay taxes on the converted amount of the $150,000. However, they really anticipated this was going to be a home run deal, which, as investors, don't we all, right? We all get a big head and think this is going to be, the big one. But he was right. And it did end up being a successful investment and it did end up being worth it. But yes, take into account, he did have to pay the taxes on the $150,000. He purchased the investment now in his Roth IRA for $101,000. He rehabbed it for $30,000, which was paid from the Roth IRA, and sold it for $239,000. In the end, after, the sale, the holding costs and whatnot, ended up being a tax-free gain back to the Roth IRA of $94,000, 72% return on investment. Again, completely tax-free. Would you do this deal? Would you pay taxes on $150,000 for just one time of making $94,000 tax-free? Do you think this is probably going to be the last deal that this person does? Heck no, right? And this person was also in Texas, which I'm not sure where all of you guys are tuning in from, but certainly in the state of Texas, you can find properties for 150,000 or 100,000 and be able to do consistent deals and repeat and rinse and repeat over and over. Yes, this client did have to pay taxes on 150,000, but just in one successful deal made back in profit 94,000 tax free. And now that they have the 150 and the 94,000 in there, they can continue to, again, rinse and repeat and do more deals. Perhaps they never do another investment in their traditional IRA, right? Perhaps they exclusively now invest in their Roth IRA. And again, all future profits, all completely tax and penalty free. So you can see really the power of this type of account. So in closing, who should have a Roth IRA? Anyone that's with taxable retirement income that maybe you're looking to diversify in the future. If you're still making earned income and wanting to save, what a great vehicle to do that. Again, with the flexibility of being able to take out those contributions if you need them. Young people or new investors that have the longest amount of time that you need and want to grow your retirement, highly recommend a Roth IRA. Take advantage of that long-term growth potential tax-free. Anyone not needing the benefit of tax deductions on contributions, maybe you don't need the benefit of tax deductions. Maybe you don't even qualify for tax deductions because you're a high earner or you have a 401k at your job. If that's you, why not then just put the money into a Roth IRA? Or if you're one of those people that thinks, man, I don't know if my tax bracket's going to go down, it might actually go up, then hedge your bets now and consider a Roth IRA. Anyone looking to avoid the restrictions of taking a required distribution. And of course, if you want to make that tax-free investment profit, not just for you, but also to pass on for future generations. So thank you so much for attending today's presentation. What can Quest Trust Company do for you? Of course, we process investments faster than anyone else in all types of alternative investments like real estate, like notes, like private companies. We hold networking opportunities. As you guys learned, we actually have one tomorrow. Highly recommend that you participate in that one. It's going to be kind of more networking style. Grab a little glass of wine and some cheese and come out and do some virtual networking with us. Fingers crossed that we will be back to live in person, in the flesh, believe it or not, educational events. Hopefully, might be speaking too soon, but hopefully next month, if not probably in July. But take advantage of some of those from the comfort of your home right now that are still virtual. No self-directed staff understands your investment needs, what investors want better than us at Quest Trust Company. We are founded by investors for investors. Nathan and Quincy Long are very experienced investors here in Texas. Quincy's an attorney. They've run a title company. They understand it from the institutional side, and they understand it from just the everyday investor side. Myself, I am an investor. Right. I actually do utilize both of my Roth IRAs to invest with, as well as the other staff that's here. We see thousands of transactions weekly. And so we really understand investments better than, a lot of other people out there because we just see so many of them. But we also understand what investors need. And we're constantly shaping the way that we're developing Quest, from everything from the customer service that we provide to the education to our very, very exciting and new advances that we're putting together in our client portal, where you're able to do things like pay your expenses or even track the status of your investment, communicate in live time. Just a few of the amazing features that we have here for our clients at Quest Trust. And of course, that's just our standard, guys. Everything we do, whether it's opening up the account, whether it's dispersing funds to you or for an expense or funding an actual investment, we always do within 24 to 48 hours. We're one of the fastest, if not the fastest in the industry. And that's just our standard. We never charge any type of expedited fees. That's just how we like to treat our clients. So I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation today. Again, my name is Anne-Marie Rogers. Thank you guys so much for having me and tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. My email is annemarie@questtrust.com. I'm happy to share the slides. Sometimes I know that people like to reference something back, or maybe you want to show significant other. Email me your questions, or if you'd like to have a consultation or grab a copy of the slides, feel free and send me those emails and I'll get you taken care of. Also check out questtrust.com. It's honestly a wealth of information. Haha, no pun intended. But seriously, guys, there's lots of educational classes on there, pre-recorded, or we have the live events. We also have blog posts, articles, short videos, you name it. We probably have it on there. So depending on how you like to learn or you like to intake that type of information, I guarantee we've got something for you. Or just pick up the phone and call one of our amazing certified IRA specialists at 855-FUN-IRAs. That's what it really breaks down to being, guys. We know this is kind of heavy tax topic, for around lunchtime, but we really try to make it fun and easy to understand. In our mind at Quest, if it's fun, if we get you guys involved and understanding it and enjoying the process, you're probably going to end up doing more investments. And of course, what we all want, making more money. Also, you can find us on social media. We're super active on there. Facebook, this is actually archived on there if you want to go back and watch it in the videos. Check us out on LinkedIn. We also have a great YouTube page where we post like 15-minute videos that are really easy and palatable and digestible on some of these kind of heavier tax topics as well. So again, thank you guys so much. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
I was muted. Thanks so much, Anne-Marie. That was amazing information. I took down some notes myself. I know everybody in the audience really enjoyed that as well. Roth conversions can be very powerful, as well as the Roth account. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. Join us on Thursday for our next weekly webinar series this week. Make sure to join us tomorrow night for our happy hour and on Saturday for Self-Directed Saturday. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week for our Tuesday session. Have a great day, everybody.